Welcome to the Survivor to Thriver show with your happiness expert, Samia Bano. Do you feel stuck, silent, and stressed? Is something hurting your heart and soul? Are you burning yourself out? If so, you are in the right place because this is the podcast people from all over the world join in to learn exactly how to stop suffering and start living with inner peace and joy. Let's get started. Hey, we've been talking about empathy versus compassion. Not like empathy and compassion are fighting with each other. On the contrary, I was making the point last episode that empathy and compassion really need each other. And when you have one, it helps you to have more of the other. And in the last couple of episodes, I was really kind of focusing on some of the challenges that can arise for us when we have lots of compassion but not enough empathy. And of course, how we can resolve those challenges, right? How we can help ourselves in those situations by practicing a greater level of empathy. But the opposite can also happen, that we can find ourselves having plenty of empathy but not enough compassion in a given situation. And the big problem that occurs when this particular situation arises is that we just don't have sufficient motivation to act, to create change, whether it's in our own behavior or change or acting in terms of doing what may be needed or required to help the other person involved in the situation. And to understand why this would be the case, why you would run into this challenge, I have to remind you yet again of the causal chain that I keep talking about. Remember, the causal chain at the one end starts with our beliefs. Our beliefs lead to our thoughts then lead to our feelings, and our feelings lead to our actions. Okay, and of course, the causal chain works the other way also. So the way that we behave or act has an impact on the way we feel, which has an impact on the way we think and believe. Now, this causal chain exists. There's no doubt about that. But what can happen is that for example, the thought pattern that you have may not be sufficiently strong to have any kind of significant impact on the way you're feeling. And if the feeling is not sufficiently strong, then it won't have any impact on your behavior. So for example, in my personal experience, one of the times when I found myself really struggling with this was when I was learning to pray. And I'm actually talking about ritual prayer. So, of course, I've shared with you that I'm a Muslim. I was actually born into a Muslim family, so that was the identity that I was given. And for the most part, I accepted it unquestioningly. Until I didn't. I was in my teens when I started to really question, what is it that I really believe? Does it even really make sense? The things that I've been taught and that I've been practicing, things that I've been doing, do I really want to do them? Do I really want to continue to engage in those actions, those behaviors? And one of the reasons why these questions started to come into my mind is because I was desperate for inner peace. I really, really needed inner peace. And this was the need that was driving all my behavior. My need for inner peace, my quest for inner peace. Now, what I'd been told all my life was that Islam means peace, right? Like literally, the word Islam means peace. And our understanding as Muslims is that Islam as a religion, as a way of life, lays out for us a pathway that if we follow that path, it leads to peace. Right? And here I am, desperate for peace. I was a Muslim without peace. I was a Muslim without Islam. An interesting phenomenon. But by no means uncommon, because I noticed that, hey, I was actually not the only one having this struggle. I wasn't the only Muslim around without any peace, without any Islam in my life. And you see, it's like one of the strongest aspects of the practice of Islam is the offering of daily ritual prayers. As a matter of fact, as Muslims, we are required to offer 5 prayers every day, ritual prayers every day. And these are sort of spread out throughout the day. And the theory is that I was taught said that when you pray, it brings you closer to God, and it washes away all your sins. It makes you feel really good and peaceful, because when you pray and you get closer to God, God is the source of all peace. So, that's like when you feel peace. That's when you're able to feel peace, is when you pray. And that is why prayer is so essential. See, because it's the very, very important tool for how we draw closer to God and therefore to the source of peace. Now, my mom had started training me in how to offer these ritual prayers since, since I could talk and walk and stand on my own. And so even as young as 4 or 5 years old, I remember standing with my mom in prayer when she would pray. I'd be doing the best I could to follow along with her. And certainly by the time I was 7, 8 years old, I was very well able to perform all the ritual aspects of the prayers myself. But the problem that I was facing was that I said all the prayers, exactly as I was taught, and I still didn't experience that peace that I was so desperate and craving for, that I was so craving. It's like I was doing all these actions and I was saying all these words along with those actions, but they were not producing the feeling. So it can absolutely happen that we can be engaging in actions, but the actions just don't make enough of an impact in terms of actually creating some kind of change in our feelings. And the same thing with thoughts that we have. It's like we can be thinking thoughts, but those thoughts are just not strong enough in their impact to create any major shift in our emotional experience. For example, in my case, one of the things that I found myself going through, and also a lot of my peers going through when I was in college, is that we'd get into these different classes and start learning about all these different issues. And remember, the first 2 years in an American college experience are focused on general education, right? So whatever your intended field of study may be, for your final degree that you're going to graduate with, the first half of your college experience, you are taking a wide variety of classes in a lot of different fields. And so you start to learn about all kinds of different issues and problems and challenges that we are faced with. And you learn about all these challenges and problems, so you have an intellectual understanding about them. But how many of us actually then go on to do anything about what we have learned? The vast majority of us, we do not take action on all the information that we have learned. All the problems that we have become familiar with that are existing in our communities, in our societies. A very common thing that I found among my friends and peers in college, and to some extent I had a similar experience until I figured out the solution, was that we would learn about these different problems and stuff, and it would make us really angry or sad or frustrated. And then we would start to get overwhelmed by just how much there is that is wrong in the world, with just the sheer number of problems and the severity of those problems, and just how much needs to be done to make things better. Each and every problem, requires for it to be resolved, for it to be addressed, requires massive action, it requires committed action. And we're like, oh my God, it's just too overwhelming. Too overwhelming. What am I supposed to do? See? And so it's like, basically the way we deal with the sense of overwhelm, is like, we're like, oh, just forget about it. Just forget about it and move on. And you do the best you can to move on. There's a part of you that feels a little residual guilt because, you're just moving on, so to speak. But it's like that guilt is not strong enough to actually motivate behavior change. And the other feelings that we had, they were like temporary. They weren't sustained. And certainly once we are out of our classes and, other parts of our lives, sort of come into play, it's actually not that hard to sort of push all these concerns and the knowledge of these different problems and ideas to the back of our heads. But every once in a while, you'll come across some kind of problem, some kind of challenge, where it's like you learn about it, you become aware of it, and it just changes your life. You're like, I have to do something about it. I will do whatever it takes to do something about this, to make this right. Talk to any person who has ever started any kind of movement, any kind of project, and you talk to them about, how did you get into this? Why did you get into this? What motivates you to stay in this, especially when things get tough, when the challenges are massive? What keeps you going? What keeps you in? It's like there's pretty much always like that person has a strong why. They have to have a strong why for why they're doing it. And usually the strong why has something to do with, I had an experience and it like really I felt really a sense of great connection. There for some reason, and we don't even always know why, but we know it just hits us. And you just can't deny that sense of connection, that pull that you experience, and you have to act on it. You have to do something about it. See, that's compassion. See, it's like if you just have empathy, you just have intellectual understanding, it's not going to be enough to motivate action. You need to have your feelings involved. You have to have your feelings involved. Because remember the causal chain. Our thoughts lead to feelings, and our feelings lead to our actions. Without sufficiently strong feelings, we're not going to take action. We're going to find it very difficult to take action. You're going to find it, and even if you take action once or twice, you're going to find it difficult to maintain that action over time. And especially when the going gets tough, you're going to find yourself struggling to maintain the action. Unless and until your feelings are involved. In other words, unless and until you have a sense of deep compassion along with empathy. See? So again, we come back to this point where empathy and compassion need each other. They need each other. They depend upon each other. One makes the other stronger. See, now the more compassion you have, the more it actually also drives you to gain greater understanding of the situation, to gain a more empathetic perspective of the situation, because you want to be able to help in the best possible ways. So, wow. It's like, I think it's just really, really, really amazing how these two characteristics, and they're also not just characteristics, they're also skill sets, just how they interact with each other and how they depend on each other. So remember, you need both. You need both. If you find yourself, interacting with people, and you're listening to people's problems, challenges, or at least you have an awareness of them, but you're just like moving on with your life and not taking any action to really help those people, it's an indication that you may need to up-level your compassion factor. Work to generate more compassion for yourself. See, and you can use your skills in empathy to help you generate more compassion. Remember, compassion is primarily grounded in that sense of oneness. So get curious with people, find out more about them, find some areas of commonalities, find as many areas of commonality as you can. So as you get curious and you practice your empathy skills, you learn more about other people, and you're understanding their perspective, you'll also begin to find more and more commonalities with them, which will help you experience more compassion towards them. So when you recognize that they're in some kind of pain or suffering, you'll find it easy to step forward and do something, do anything, do whatever it is that you can to help that other person. So think about this in context of your own situation. Where are you at? Are you equally good with empathy and compassion? Or perhaps do you have more empathy, less compassion, or less compassion, more empathy? And whatever your current state of situation is in this context, there's always room for improvement, right? If you have empathy but not as much compassion, you can work on raising your level of compassion, or vice versa. And if right now you're pretty well balanced in your level of empathy and compassion, hey, why not challenge yourself to raise both to an even higher degree? We can never have too much empathy or too much compassion. No, you can never have too much empathy, and you can never have too much compassion. We need both. And the more you have of them both, wow, the better your life experience will be. Better in terms of an enhanced ability that you will have to stop suffering and start living with inner peace and joy, and help others to do the same. So if this is something you find yourself struggling with, please do not continue to struggle with it on your own. Reach out for help and support. And I'm one person that you can reach out to. Just go to my website at www.academyofthriving.com, click on the Contact Us page, and you'll see exactly how you can connect with me. So until next time, I wish you lots of peace and joy.